Good morning. Good morning from sunny Ballymena again this morning. I ditched my decluttering, as I said in my earlier post this morning, for going out for a bike ride. I've ditched the decluttering because I'm fighting a losing battle. My kitchen is still not fitted and there's just stuff everywhere in this house. So I think I'm going to wait until I get my kitchen at least back together and I can move around my house instead of moving around all of the stuff that's been taken out of my kitchen and is now deposited in all sorts of rooms, including here behind me. All my vases are sitting here in my spare room. Anyway, I'd love if some of you would hop on with me here, and if anyone hops on, do let me know that you're here. Do send me a thumbs up, say hello. That would be really lovely. So Dean mentioned in his video this morning that I had recorded me reading a passage of a book to him. I think it was the day before yesterday. And that it had had a profound impact on his interactions sort of with his kids thereafter, and sort of had really resonated with him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the same passage that I read to Dean, or for Dean, that I know he has passed on to some other people, and I'm going to talk to you then about a little bit about the book, which I'm only at the beginning of, so I leave maybe a more in-depth review of that till I'm finished, but I'll talk to you a little bit about what the book and what's it about, and also why this passage really resonates very, very deep inside my heart and my soul. So here goes. Where it all begins, I cannot say. This sense of being a stranger in a world full of people who seem to belong in it. All I know is that some of us are not like the others. Something in us doesn't fit. Most of us start to know this in early childhood when we run to our mother or father or a friend with some idea, some way of expressing what we feel, and watch them pull away. Their faces close like shutters, leaving us lonely and afraid that we have done something wrong. We learn to hide and lie about our true selves because what felt like treasure turned out to be dangerous or of little value. These moments are scattered throughout our childhood, each stealing a piece of our innocence, leaving in its place a wounded patch of flesh, now covered in armour. We learn to protect ourselves, to act normal, and turn down our light. We soon find ourselves on a great conveyor belt that carries us into the steel-geared maw of a machine designed to turn us into human widgets. In the classroom and on the playground, we are taught what is valuable, and we quickly learn that being curious and sensitive are not rewarded by the teachers or our peers. The ones who get ahead are the savvy ones. They are cool and sharp and hard, like racks of kitchen knives. They are suited to this place, and they slide into their slots as if born to them. But some of us are awkwardly honest and passionate and interested, tender in odd places, gifted and cursed to feel everything deeply. And yet feeling is power and energy and currency. How we experience life is important. It matters and bears in itself codes and symbols the world needs us to unlock. Who you are as yourself is treasure. Those parts of you, the parts that make your insides quiver in case anyone ever saw who you really are, those parts are what the world needs right now. The bad news is that there is no easy fix for this feeling of otherness that has stuck to our skin like a birthmark for as long as we can remember. The good news is that learning to embrace this about ourselves is what allows us to find genius in the anomalous beauty of ourselves. In other words, you don't need to undo what makes you different. As Robert McCammon said in his book Boy's Life, when I was 12 years old, the world was my magic lantern, and by its green spirit glow, I saw the past, the present, and into the future. You probably did too, you just don't recall it. See, this is my opinion. We all start out knowing magic. We are born with whirlwinds, forest fires, and comets inside us. We are born able to sing to birds and read the clouds and see our destiny in grains of sand. But then we get the magic educated right out of our souls. We get it churched out, spanked out, washed out, and combed out. We get put on the straight and narrow and told to be responsible, told to act our age, told to grow up for God's sake. And you know why we were told that? Because the people doing the telling were afraid of our wildness and youth, and because the magic we knew made them ashamed and sad of what they'd allowed to wither in themselves. Children are the weirdest of all humans before we condition and domesticate them into the norms of society. Go watch a child, study her, see how she makes expressive faces without any concern about seeming strange or awkward. See how her eyes are wide, wide open to see everything because so much of her world is still new and undefined. Listen as she asks tough, honest questions until some grown-up tells her to hush. Watch as she paints the sky of her mind with magic and imagination, how anything and everything is possible still. Ursula K. Le Guin said, "The creative adult is the child who has survived." That survival is exactly what we are talking about here. We are handed the keys to our own kingdoms again when we recover the tramped down abilities of the inner child to see and imagine and create. What's interesting to me about any of us is not how well we can dance like puppets on a string. I only want to know what is real, what is true, and what cannot be ignored. Everything else is a waste of time, which is the same as saying it is a waste of life. There is something that is at once inevitable and at the same time infinitely easy to avoid. That thing is why we are here. It is the North Star that has guided our lives to this point. No matter how far off the path we might have wandered at times. It is the sense of purpose and destiny that wakes us up at night and begs us to pay attention. That thing is the call of soul. Whew, wow. That sort of blew me away when I read it. I'll tell you why in a moment. I'll tell you a little bit about the book first. So the book is called Blessed Are the Weird. It's by a guy called, Blessed Are the Weird, a manifesto for creatives. It's by a guy called Jacob Nordby. I only came across Jacob Nordby probably a month or so ago when I think some promotion for this book popped up in my Facebook feed. But it seems like he's been about for a while because he has written some other books. Hi, Dean, yeah, blew you away too. No, it's incredible stuff. He's written a book called The Divine Arsonist, A Tale of Awakening. He's also written a book called Pearls of Wisdom with Jack Canfield. So that's I'm interested to read that one as well. And this is like, if I read you the back of this, you know, just to let you know what the book is about. As I say, I'll probably do a more in-depth review of this. I'm only this far through, okay? And the reason I'm only this far through is really important because every page I read of this book stops me in my tracks. Every single page. So I want to put it down and I want to digest it and think about it and reread it. And I'm reading it to my husband. As I say, I've recorded bits of it, you know, and sent it to Dean. And also, it's not a very thick book, and I know when I get to the bottom of this, hi Patrick, your headphones decided to play up, so you'll have to go back and listen later. Good stuff, that would be great. So it's a very thin book, and I know that when I get to the end of it, I'm going to be nearly crying that I want more, I want more, I want more. So I'm really savouring every page of this book. So I'm going to read you out just the back of it, which sort of gives you a little bit of detail about what the book is about. In this book, author Jacob Nordby offers a bold new definition of success in the modern era. So the next bit is in quotes, and this is a bit from the book. The only success now is living and creating a work of art life, unique, rich with meaning, naked of anything we don't care about, and ruthless about carving out something absolutely real from a world that has gorged itself on fakeness and become critically ill from it. The only failure now is pulling back from that quest because of fear. Expanding upon his short original Blessed Are the Weird piece that became a viral phenomenon, he traces the roots of soulful artistry and creation to ancient times and back again to reveal the insistent, eternal quest of our true natures that demand something real, as if our very existence depends upon it. This book is a call to creatives and those who want to be, with the clear message that it has never been more critical to heed the call of soul than it is during this exciting, dangerous new Renaissance epoch on planet Earth. This is a book for everyone who wants to lead a deep, true and passionate life and leave the world better for having passed this way. So I love all of that. So just a little bit about why this resonated so deeply right inside the very core of my being. Not so much for myself, okay, because yes, I'm a creative, but I feel that I had a very sort of my childhood, you know, I was very much allowed to be creative and I was running about outside all the time, and so I don't sort of feel that this applies, you know, very specifically to how my parents maybe conditioned me. I do know that obviously, yes, I went to school, and yeah, I do feel, yeah, the creativity has educated the hell right out of you, and there's very little value placed on creativity, the arts, the humanities and so on when you get into the education system. But that's not why that made me cry when I read it first. It was because it was as if it was written for one of my sons. One of my sons, Marco, is 6. And he's in P2. When he went to before he went to school, I just described Marco, since a very young age, has had a personality the size of a house. And we had a little nickname for him sort of from early days, which was Marcotic, because crazy. The stuff that goes on in his head, hi Michelle, the stuff that goes on in his head is just offbeat, random. He comes out with the most unusual things, has done from a young age. He's really active. He loves to be doing stuff. He's got great imagination. You know, sometimes some of the things he comes out with, I don't even have any idea where they could possibly have come from. So he went to school. He went to nursery, and he really enjoyed nursery and was his crazy little self. He went to P1, obviously not last September, the previous September. And within a matter of weeks, I saw a huge change. Not just me and my husband saw a huge change in Marco. For a child who was vivacious, outgoing, confident, exuberant, he became the exact opposite of all of that. He became subdued, quiet, unexpressive, if that's a word, all of those things. And I think it sort of was, we had a chat with his teacher sort of in October, and she said, look, you know, he's in a very quiet class, and he, you know, he sort of stands out because he has such a huge personality. And, you know, he'd been saying to me that he gets told off all the time, he got shouted at all the time, and his self-esteem was starting to crumble. And sort of his teacher said, look, you know, I am having to correct him a lot because, you know, he is so active and all of this. So anyway, that was that. I think it sort of came to crunch point in, there's a couple of things. November, one evening, he lay down on the floor in the kitchen and cried his heart out. And he said to me, I don't like school. I'm going to cry myself here. I'm going to try not to. I don't like school because I don't know how to be. And really what he had found was that, you know, he wasn't one of those sharp knives that Jacob Nordby talks about that just slots into its place. He realized that the way he was, his being himself, didn't fit, didn't work, and it, you know, it was heartbreaking. Marco doesn't cry, you know, even if, you know, he never cries from an emotional point, never has done. He might cry if he falls down, which he does a lot of the time because he's always climbing and jumping and whatever, but even then not for very long. He's never a child that you've really needed to comfort from an emotional standpoint. So I knew there was sort of something wrong then. I had another chat with his teacher, and she was very sort of positive and sort of talked about helping me and so on. Then he was in the school play at Christmas, and as it so happened, I was going to watch the school play one day, and my husband Paul was going the following day because just of our work schedule. So I went to watch him in the school play, and I got into my car afterwards, and as I was driving home, I cried my eyes out. And the reason being that my exuberant little crazy munchkin was standing up on that stage like this, straight as a, not moving his head, just moving his eyes, looking like he was lost, that he was in a place that he didn't belong. And it was heartbreaking. And, you know, I remember coming home and telling Paul, and, you know, probably thinking, you know, that Paul might have been thinking, maybe she's sort of seeing more into this, because I was quite emotional at this time about how upset my little boy was. But my, you know, and I actually saw him on that stage and thought, he looks like he's drugged almost, you know, all of him is gone. Where is it? There's nothing, no light behind the eyes. So the husband went the next day and actually agreed with me and said the same thing. So we made a decision at that time that we needed to do something. So we did some research and came across a lovely lady who he went to for play therapy. You know, so that's a sort of a big sort of decision to make, and it was really helpful. And essentially that therapy is where he goes into a room with this lady and he can play with all of the toys and just work through his own sort of things, through the things that he's playing with and what he's doing, and it was some special space for him and so on. He loved it, he benefited from it to a degree. But I have to say, even by the time it got to last sort of summer holidays, I was thrilled that he was getting some months off school, because he was just done, now he's gone into P2 and he's got a different teacher. Excuse me, my hair's in my eyes. He's got a different teacher and things are just working out better for him. But he still hates school, this business of having to sit down all the time, of not being able to express himself, the real himself that is inside of him here. And when I read that, as I say, that made me cry, because I thought, yeah, the system is trying to turn Marco into a human widget. And that makes me very sad. And don't get me wrong, I am not blaming, teachers. There's lots of great teachers. There's lots of not so great teachers, I'm afraid, as I have come across already. But I'm not getting into that at this point in time. But I guess, as Dean said this morning, stopping and allowing your child to express their imagination, to be themselves, is a really important thing. And the education system is not geared generally to promote creativity. And if you're interested in this topic, go and watch some of the talks on YouTube. There's a TED talk that's been watched over 12 million times by Ken Robinson, which is Do Schools Kill Creativity? Everything that man is saying, I totally agree with. He talks about how creativity is as important as literacy, but it's not given any status in schools at all in the system. He also talks about how the education system has become a delivery system. It delivers the national curriculum as if it's dropping it off in boxes, and it's all about pushing facts into children and standardized testing and all of this sort of thing. And it does kill creativity, and it's all about homogenous, everybody being the same as opposed to everybody being diverse. But anyway, I'm not getting into a big debate about that. We leave that for another day. I think that's a great topic to come up with another day. Let me see just what Dean is saying. The big thing I got as well was the reminder that we're no different than the human our kids are, that we have access to the same magic they see in the world, but we've become so serious and have become, I'm going to try and see more, and have become blind when we remember the magic we get to live in a more lighthearted way. Yeah, absolutely. So for ourselves, yes, it is. We all have that magic inside of us. The trick is to be more like a child, be more like that wide-eyed child who believes in magic. Magic is all around us, actually, if we look for it. So that's a really important message. So that was my little story for today. As I say, I'm loving this book. I'm going to refer to it again and again. There's lots of other little messages in here for all of us, I believe. I will be sharing those as I go along, sharing the things I'm getting excited about, sharing the things that really resonate with me. To be honest, that would nearly involve me having to sit and read every page, but I won't do that. But I will pick out some other pieces for you as we progress. But if that sounds like a book, go out and buy it. It's a fantastic book. And as I say, we'll probably have a good old debate, a good old sort of theme around sort of education and creativity, and what we can do when our kids are sort of in that education system and maybe they're not getting everything they need from that system, how we can maybe add other things into their lives when they're at home and at the weekends and in the evenings and so on, to counterbalance that to some degree. So have a beautiful day, folks, and I will maybe catch up with you again later, and if not later, perhaps tomorrow. Stay strong.